simply allow ourselves to settle in, to release any tension from our bodies, from our minds, our hearts. We place all of our concerns into the divine light of truth. Words of the Master tell us, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Thank you. Thank you, living Spirit. And as we come together today, it is by your grace to awaken from that spiritual amnesia that we seem to suffer from on occasion when we forget and then we remember again. And perhaps along our journey we encounter others who have forgotten, or perhaps no one ever told them. And so we choose to be a mirror. We let the light of who we are shine forth, breaking free from habits, from old worn-out beliefs, from ways of being that do not serve. And we are lifted up in consciousness, choice by choice, through our thoughts, through our words, and through our actions. We remember, and we allow the light we are to shine forth. And as we do, it creates a rippling light. And so I invite you now to sit. Sit in the serenity of the peace and light that lives within you, and bask in its peace. We give grateful thanks for the opportunity to remember, to come together on this Sunday morning, to celebrate the truth of who each and every one of us is, and to celebrate the expansion of our consciousness individually and collectively. For as one is lifted up, we all are. And so we say thank you. Thank you, sweet Spirit. And so it is. Amen. Thank you for being here. It's always such a blessing to be here with all of you. Well, you just never know how Spirit's going to work, do you? Sort of like, stay tuned.
Yeah.
Yeah. In choosing the message for today's lesson, what I got was breaking free. Because I don't know about you, but I have had habits and ways of doing things and being that wasn't always in my best interest. Anyone else? just maybe one or two of us. And so as I was preparing this, I thought, okay, so practice what you preach. Because Spirit has a funny way of doing that with me. I don't know about the rest of you, especially those of you who teach in any way, shape, or form, whether it's your children, your grandchildren, or if you're studying to become a licensed Unity teacher, or whatever you're doing in life. Do you notice how it can just sort of get right in your face? So as I was preparing, what I got was, step away from the computer. You're talking about breaking free. So here's a thought, do it different. So that this message is in all sorts of shapes and forms. So if I'm shuffling papers, that's part of my breaking free. Let's start off on the plus side here. What's a good habit you have? A healthy one, a dressing.
Coming here.
Coming here. Good choice. Who else? Good habit, healthy habit.
Sending out love and forgiveness to other people.
Excellent. What else?
Daily spiritual practice.
Daily spiritual practice.
Exercise.
Exercise.
Yes.
Brushing your teeth. Yeah. My dentist once told me, I was talking to him about flossing because in our family, my parents just didn't do it. You know, I don't know that they were ever told the benefits of it. And my dentist said, he said, don't worry about it. He goes, only floss the ones you want to keep.
That is true.
I'm missing a few. I can vouch for that. I started flossing religiously, believe me. So what are some other habits that you have that are good ones? Yes, ma'am.
Smiling at everybody. I mean,
Yes, smiling. Smiles can work miracles. Yes, sir.
Choosing to be quiet for just a little while in the morning.
Choosing to be quiet, to get still. Remember that, what was that phrase? Be still and know that I am God. If we've got the yammering, chattering monkey, that it's kind of hard to get a word in edgewise, it's also hard to remember the truth sometimes. Because there is so much yammering. It's like when I see people walking around with the cell phone and the iPod and this and that, and thinking, ugh. I don't even like to drive with the radio on, you know? So, good habits. They're things that take practice. It's like exercise or yoga. I know for myself, because I've had physical injuries and ailments and all kinds of things that have happened to my body temple. If I don't do yoga for a while, I can barely walk. I look like I've just aged about 40 years. And even just driving up here, the hour and a half it takes to get up here, by the time I get out, it's all I can do to get out of the car. So the good habits are life-giving, aren't they? And even the little ones like brushing your teeth and flossing, really good habit to get into. So, I did decide to look in the dictionary and see what the word habit means. Well, according to the dictionary, it says it's an acquired pattern of behavior that has become almost involuntary as a result of frequent repetition, a customary practice. So, in other words, we can develop a habit of what? Just about anything, can't we? The good news is we have freedom of choice. So what are we choosing? There's a story somewhere here that I want to share with you. Now, this is a true story. And it's about Russia back in the days of the Tsars. In one part of the St. Petersburg Winter Palace, there's this beautiful lawn. And on that lawn was a bench. And next to the bench were 2 guards. Every 3 hours, the guards were changed. The funny thing was, no one knew why. Nobody knew why.
Well, one day, an ambitious young lieutenant was put in charge of the palace guard, and he started wondering and asking questions. It eventually led him to a small cobweb room. And there was this little old man who looked like he was about 200 years old, sitting at this little tiny desk. He was the palace historian. And so the young officer began asking him questions. And the elderly man replied, he says, I remember. It was during the reign of Peter the Great, 200 years ago. The bench got a fresh coat of paint. The Tsar was concerned that the ladies in waiting might get paint on their dresses. And so they ordered one guard to watch the bench. Well, the order was never rescinded. Well, then, back in 1908, there was fear of a revolution breaking out, so the guards were doubled. So the bench has had 2 guards ever since. True story. Tradition.
And an entrenched bureaucracy like
Yes.
we got down.
Yeah. Funny habits, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's another story I want to share with you. This one is too good to pass up. In Bolivia, a man by the name of Jose Silva had an argument with an indigenous man there. Well, the man didn't appreciate his attitude, so he proceeded to shoot a 4-foot arrow into Silva's face. Well, needless to say, he was enormously shocked at first. And he wanted to take the arrow taken out immediately, of course, but he couldn't get to a doctor for months because they were in this very remote region. So when he finally did see a doctor and the physician agreed to remove the arrow, Jose asked, well, wait a minute, is this going to hurt? Because he really wasn't into pain, okay? And the doctor says, well, yeah. It's been in there for quite a while, you know, when the tissues run around it and stuff. He says, yeah, it's going to hurt a lot. And he says, you know, all my life I've tried to be something special and felt like I never was. But now, people look at me wherever I go. People pay attention to me. No matter what I'm doing, no matter where I am, no matter what time of the day or night it is, I get all this attention. He says, I kind of like having the arrow there. It's like it's become my friend. So guess what? For 11 more years, Jose Silva lived with a 4-foot arrow in his head. Isn't it amazing what a human being can get used to, or what we'll do? And we think of this as being absurd, but we know that we or others have gotten used to certain behaviors and things in our lives, certain habits. And they come in all shapes and forms and flavors, don't they? And it can start out as such a little thing. It might start out as one cookie after dinner, and then it becomes 2 or 3, or a bag. Some of them are really good, especially when you go to Trader Joe's and other places. They are habit forming. So, the question is, what can we do with it? Well, one of my favorite examples is Myrtle Fillmore. Now, Myrtle Fillmore had been told that she was sick and weakly from the time she was a little girl. I mean, she had tuberculosis. And this was a family tradition. And they were in the habit of believing what they were told. They believed the good doctors who were doing the best they could at the level of consciousness that they were at. But what happened? What happened with Myrtle? She didn't need to be sick. She heard Dr. Evie Weeks, who said what? You are a child of God, and therefore you do not inherit sickness or disease. Your inheritance is
of life. That was our inspiration when we first began World Day of Prayer. It was Myrtle and her prayer consciousness, her steadfast faith in God within her to work in and through her, to heal her, to bless her, to uplift her, and to create a ripple effect through her family, her friends, her neighborhood. And as we know today, what happened is that it spread throughout the world. The idea for Unity's World Day of Prayer actually came as a class assignment, and I think I may have shared this with you before. It came from sort of a hard-nosed instructor that we had that was a former Top Gun pilot. And he gave us the assignment. I think we had maybe 2 weeks to do it in. He said, here's the deal. Create something that will make a positive difference in the world. And it better be good, because you're being graded on it. So we took it into prayer, and what we came up with is a World Day of Prayer. Now, because there is a hierarchy in Unity, as there is in everything, the actual first World Day of Prayer was 21 years ago. But the first year we weren't allowed to call it World Day of Prayer. It was called Reaching Out in Unity. But it didn't matter. They could call it whatever they wanted. It was about the intention, just as it was for Myrtle in her intention. Now, the Fillmores were greatly inspired by Dr. H. Emily Cady, who wrote Lessons in Truth. And I was gifted, when I was at Unity Village, Rosemary Fillmore Ray, who is the granddaughter of the Fillmores, was one of my friends and mentors. And she gifted me with this little study guide booklet when I was there as a ministerial student. And this was printed back in the 40s, I believe. I want to share a little bit of this with you. It says some facts about H. Emily Cady and Lessons in Truth. Have you ever wondered about H. Emily Cady and how she came to write her famous book that has been read by millions? Have you ever wondered about that? I mean, this is sort of the gold standard for Unity, isn't it? Have you ever thought about it, though? Have you ever looked into it? It's kind of curious. Dr. Cady was a practicing physician as well as a metaphysician. Early in her career of treating the physical ailments of people, she saw that their ills were deeper than outer remedies could reach or cure. She recognized the inner and the metaphysics, the symbolism in it. She began treating her patients as spiritual beings, helping them to find within themselves the source of health for mind and body. The first contact of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore with Dr. Cady was through Mrs. Fillmore's receiving a copy of her then booklet, Finding the Christ in Ourselves. And that's what started it all. And then they asked her if she would be kind enough to write lessons for them to share, which she did, which evolved into what we now know as Lessons in Truth. You never know what is going to evolve out of a simple question, out of a request, maybe out of an assignment in a class you're taking. The good news is it does work together for the highest good, doesn't it? And we are all blessed. I'd like to share just a little bit of what Dr. Cady says in here. She says, it is through the indwelling Christ that we are to receive all that God has and is, as much or as little as we can or dare to claim. So I would ask you, what do you dare? What do you dare? Is there a habit or a belief in your life that you know you'd be better off if you let go of? Anyone?
Yes? Yeah. Whether it's old beliefs about stuff that we got brought up with, whether it came from our family, church, school, authority figures, whatever. If we did a scan, here's a thought. What if, you know how many of you have computers? Everybody? Anybody that doesn't? Maybe I should ask it the other way. Okay.
No.
No. So, you boot up your computer, and let's say you click on the button that shows you every program on that computer. You get a pretty good list, don't you? What if we could do that with our minds? For every belief that we have.
We'd have to have a super computer.
Have you ever tried writing them down? Have you? Have you done it recently? You have?
Every day.
Most of us don't though. It's just sort of like this, sort of a fog up there, maybe. Sort of like, we know they're up there, and we kind of know what most of them are. But I have to wonder if there are some that are just sort of operating on autopilot. Like when you press cruise control on your car and you're just cruising. What if this week, let's pretend this is a class and I'm going to give you homework. What if this week you wrote down your beliefs? You could have one for beliefs and one for habits. And you can break them into categories. It makes it a little bit easier. Mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. What do you believe and what are your habits? Might make an interesting connection, wouldn't it? Remember what was inscribed in the Greek temples? Know thyself. How important is that? How important was it to the healing of Myrtle Fillmore? When she recognized it was about this belief in tuberculosis, this belief of being sick. The idea that her body was frail and sickly and all this stuff. Now here's the interesting thing. Put that on hold just a minute. Step over to this side. There's something called paradox. Paradox is when two seeming opposites are both true. And sometimes that's a challenge to wrap our brains around, isn't it? But here's a simple way of looking at it. I am my mother's daughter. I also have a daughter. So I am a daughter and I am also a mother, and now that she has children, I am a grandmother. That's paradox. It's a simple version of it. God is eminent. God is within the very cells of our being. We are God in manifestation, and yet God's Spirit, whatever we want to call it, is greater than all the universe and all the dimensions of being. So how do we wrap all this together? Getting some objectivity is a good thing. When Myrtle Fillmore was given 6 months to live when she was only 41 years old, the mother of two and the wife of Charles, she didn't set out to start a church. She was already a good Methodist woman. She went to church regularly. Jesus was her best friend. She had a very intimate, loving relationship with the God of her understanding. The why of it for her was she wanted to live. She wanted to live. She wanted to be there with her children, with her husband.
She wanted to live her life to the fullest. So for myself, when I look at my habits and my stuff, the question that comes up for me is, okay, what is my intention? Why do I want to do that? Is it serving or is it depleting? To hold to the idea that she had TB and she had 6 months before she was going to drop dead, not very life-giving, is it? Not very helpful. So she chose to go the other route and believe the message she got from Dr. E.B. Weeks. We are the beloved of God, and we inherit life. How good is that? Here's another one of my favorite authors. You may or may not be familiar with her. She was around during the time of the Fillmores. Her name is Dana Gatlin. The interesting thing is that most of what she wrote, she used various pen names. She didn't want to take credit for it. She wasn't looking for any glory or pats on the back. She worked in Silent Unity. She was an avid contributor to the pamphlets, to all kinds of things, to lessons. Well, a collection of her writing was actually, she put it into book form, and it was one of the few things that we have of hers. And it's simply titled, God is the Answer. And if you have never read this, do yourself a huge favor and read it. The thing of it is in much of what she is writing about in this book, she is writing about herself, but she puts it in third person. From chapter 12, I want to share this little bit with you. It's titled, I Have No Fear. What would be about the greatest boon you could possibly imagine? The greatest blessing, the greatest joy that you could ever imagine? Would it not be to be absolutely without fear? Yeah. It's like it says in Course of Miracles, it's love or fear. Psychologists say that fear, deeply embedded and if long-standing in the mind, is at the bottom of most of the ills that human flesh is heir to. Fear among nations causes war. Fear among individuals causes hatred and violence, weak tremblings and shrinkings, vain ostentations, pretensions, and covert underhanded dealings. Fear causes us to live in a world of confusion and uncertainty, of desperate striving, and of ceaseless battle against that which threatens to pull us down, until finally fear shatters the very cells of the body itself. This could have been written today, couldn't it? It was written in the early 1900s. Some things don't change, do they? She said, ugly, destructive fear. No one really wants it in his or her life, but how to get rid of it? In the first place, and in the ultimate analysis, it is for our very lives that we fear. And wedged into a person's lifespan is the full category of other fears, the big ones, the small ones, the petty ones, terrific ones, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So the bottom line question is, what are you afraid of? We know what Myrtle was afraid of. But it wasn't really a fear. It was more of when she got the diagnosis of 6 months to live, what did she do? She said, yeah, denial. Denials and affirmations. Those are our power tools. We deny the power of the judgment and the condemnation of whatever is being thrown on us or offered to us, because sometimes it comes on a pretty shiny silver platter, doesn't it? I'll offer you a deal, honey, you can't refuse. And that's when we know
to look at it and see if this is something we might want to consider denying, saying no thank you, and affirming the truth if you in what we are. Awareness is the first key. There is a story here somewhere. Oh, this is by one of my favorite authors I'm going to read to you. There comes a time when you walk away from all the drama and people who create it. You surround yourself with people who make you laugh. You forget the bad and focus on the good, the love, and the joy. Life is too short to be anything else. Falling down is a part of life. Getting back up is living. This is what Myrtle did. And it's what the messages of unity continue to inspire us to do for each and every one of us. In this season of life, I ask myself and I ask all of you, what do you want in your heart and soul? What do you want to be, to do, to create? What do you truly want? What is in your heart and soul? And with that question, I have to add this one. What boundaries are needed to create and maintain, to support your choices? Because we do have to create those healthy boundaries, don't we? And especially when it comes to shifting gears with our habits or beliefs. So I want you to close your eyes for just a moment and consider this. There is only one you in all of creation. It is by your choice, through your habits, that you play your part and fulfill your divine role, the one your soul came here to live. As you willingly release any beliefs or habits that are out of alignment of the truth of who and what you are, it is a blessed and welcome soul gift to yourself and to all of life. This is the truth of who you are and what you are about being on this precious planet. And so yes. The best thing I can ever tell anyone is be your sweet, wonderful divine self.